Krishna. Welcome everybody to day 2 of our Navadvipa Parikrama. And today is the 21st Thursday, March Ekadashi, the Tirubhav of Madhavendra Puri, and also one great devotee. Our dear friend left his body today in Mayapur Dham, Pujapad Sri Avadut Maharaj, Bhaktivedanta Avadut Maharaj from America. He left his body at around about 9:30, 10 o'clock, or maybe earlier even, this morning. So great devotee, special devotee. And we celebrate his departure. So we'll have a kirtan and then we'll continue. We'll sing Sake Kalaya Gauram Udaram. Sake Kalaya Gauram Udaram. Sake Kalaya Gauram Udaram. Sake Kalaya Gauram Udaram. Sake Udaram. Sake Kalaya Gauram Udaram. Vara Nindita Hataka Kantakale Vara Nindita Hataka Kantikale Vara Kantikale Vara Garvita Maharaka Maharam Garvita Maharaka Maharam Sake Kalaya Gauram Udaram. Sake Kalaya Gauram Udaram. Madhukara Ranjita Malati Mandita Malakara Ranjita Malati Mandita Madhukara Ranjita Malati Mandita Ranjita Malati Mandita Jita Gana Kunjita Keshan Jita Gana Kunjita Keshan Jita Gana Kunjita Keshan Jita Gana Kunjita Keshan Tilaka Vinindita Shashodara Rupaka Tilaka Vinindita Shashodara Rupaka Nindita Shashodara Rupaka Bhuvana Manohara Vesha Bhuvana Mara Vesha Tilaka Vinindita Shashodara Rupaka Bhuvana Manohara Vesham Bhuvana Manohara Vesham Tilaka Vinin, you sing the second line, not this, you singing it. Tila, I sing it first and then you respond. Tilaka Vinindita Shashodara Rupaka Vinindita Shashodara Bhuvana Manohara Vesham Bhuvana Manohara Vesham Tilaka Vinindita Shashodara Rupaka Bhuvana Manohara Vesham Bhuvana Manohara Sake Kalaya Gauram Udaram Sake Kalaya Gauram Udaram Sake Kalaya Gauram Udaram Sake Goramudaram Madhurashmita Lovita Tanubritam Madhurashmita Lovita Tanubritam Madhurashmita Lovita Tanubritam Madhurashmita Lovita Tanubritam Anupama Bhava Vilasham Anubhava Bhava Vilasham Anubhava Bhava Vilasam Anubhava Bhava Vilasam Nindita Niduvana Nagari Mohita Manasa Niduvana Nagari Mohita Manasa Niduvana Nagari Mohita Manasa Niduvana Nagari Mohita Manasa Vikatita Gadavasa Vikatita Gadavasa Niduvana Nagari Mohita Manasa Vikatita Gadavasa Sake Kalaya Goramudaram Sake Kalaya Goramudaram Parama Kinchana Kinchana Naragana Parama Kinchana Kinchana Naragana Parama Kinchana Kinchana Naragana Karuna Vitarana Shilam Karuna Vitarana Shilam Karuna Vitarana Shilam Karuna Vitarana Shilam Shobita Durmati Radha Mohana Shobita Durmati Radha Mohana Shobita Durmati Radha Mohana Vita Durmati Radha Mohana Namaka Nirupamali La Namaka Nirupamali La Shobita Durmati Radha Mohana Namaka Nirupamali La Namaka Nirupamali La Sake Kalaya Goramudaram Sake Kalaya Goramudaram Sake Kalaya Goramudaram Sake Kalaya Goramudaram Nindita Taka Kanti Kalevara Nindita Taka Kanti Kalevara Garvita Mara Kamaram Garvita Mara Kamaram Nindita Taka Kanti Kalevara Garvita Mara Kamaram Garvita Mara Kamaram Sake Kalaya Goramudaram Sake Kalaya Goramudaram Jaya Sachinandan Jaya Gaura Hare Sachinandan Jaya Gaura Hare Oh Gaura He 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 Oh Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ramo Ramo Ramo, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Ramo Ramo, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ramo, Hare Ramo, Ramo Ramo, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Oh Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama. Oh Hare Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Gaura Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura. Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Gaura Hari Bol. Jaya Nityananda Rai, Jaya Nityananda Rai, Nityananda Rai, Jaya Nityananda Rai. Oh Nitai Hey, Nitai Hey, Nitai Hey, oh Nitai Hey, Nitai Hey, Nitai Hey, Nitai Hey, Nitai Hey. Jaya Sachinandan Jaya Gaura Hari, Sachinandan Jaya Gaura Hari. Gaura Hey, 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 Gaura Hey. Oh Jaya Radha, Madana Mohan Radha, Madana Mohan Radhe. Jaya Radha, Govinda Radha, Govinda Radhe. Jaya Radha, Vinod Bihari Radha, Vinod Bihari Radhe. Jaya Radhe, Jaya Radhe, Jaya Radhe, Jaya Shri Radhe. Oh Radhe, 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 Radhe. Jai Shri Guru Garanga Ganhavika Giridhari. Radha Madan Mohan Ju ki Jai. Shri Radha Govinda Dev ki Jai. Radha Gopinath Ju ki Jai. Radha Binod Bihari Ju ki Jai. Jai Nityananda Rai ki Jai. Sachinandana Gaura Hari ki Jai. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur ki Jai. Surabhi Kunj ki Jai. Jai Nitya Leela Pravishta Om. Asto Tarasara Shishimat. Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj ki Jai. Jai Nitya Leela Pravishta Om. Asto Tarasara Shishimat. Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Jai Nitya Leela Pravishta Om. Asto Tarasara Shishimat. Srila Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Goswami Maharaj ki Jai. Jai Jagat Guru Nitya Leela Pravishta Om. Asto Astotara Shishimad, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Prabhupada ki jai. Jai Paramahamsa Mahabhagavat Srila Gaura Das Babaji Maharaj ki jai. Jai Saptam Goswami Srila Satchidananda Bhaktivinoda Thakur ki jai. Jai Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur ki jai. Jai Narottam Srinivas Shyamananda Prabhu Treya ki jai. Jai Srila Krishna's Kaviraj Goswami ki jai. Jai Shri Rup Sanatan Shibata Raghunath Shri Jiva Gopal Bharadasa Raghunath Sad Goswami Prabhu's ki jai. Jai Swarab Damodar Rai Ramananda Gauda Parsada ki jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki jai. Prem Sikha Hol Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Shri Gauda Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Shri Antadvip Mayapur Simantadvip Gautandvip Madhyadvip Koladvip Ritujip Janadvip Motandvip Rudradvip Atmakanavadvip Dham ki jai. Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopi Go Govardhan Dwarasavan Martmika Shri Brajamandal ki jai. Shri Radhakund Shamakund Ganga Jamuna Devi Tulsi Devi Bhakti Devi ki jai. Shrimati Brinda Devi Maharani ki jai. Shrimati Yogamaya Purnamasi Devi Maharani ki jai. Gopishra Mahadev ki jai. Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Sudarshan Chakra ki jai. Ketra Mandal ki jai. Sarva Vigna Vinashakari Shina Shingadev Bhagavan ki jai. Bhakta Prabha Shri Prahlad Maharaj ki jai. Charidam ki jai. Chari Sampradaya ki jai. Chari Acharya ki jai. Akara Mataraj Shri Chaitanya Mat ki jai. Shri Keshav Ji Gaudiya Mat ki jai. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Shri Harinam Sankirtan ki jai. Ananta Kota Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai. Samagat Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Gauda Premanande Hari Hari Bol. Om Aginati Mirandasya Gyananjala Shalakaya Chakshu Unmilitam Jena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Guruve Gauda Chandraya Radhikaya Tadalaye Krishnaya Krishna Bhaktaya Tadabhaktaya Namo Namaha Priya Sarupe Daita Sarupe Prema Sarupe Sahajavi Rupe Nijana Rupe Prabhueka Rupe Tatana Rupe Swavilasa Rupe Anapita Chirim Chirat Karunavartino Kalo Samarapaitam Unnata Ujvala Rasam Swabhakti Shriyam Hari Purata Sundaratu Dikatam Sadipita Sadahridare Kandare Swaratu Vasachinandanaha Yam Pravajantamanapetiam Apeti Krityam Dvaipaino Viraha Katara Ajuhava Putre Titam Mayatayo Tarabo Vinirustam Sarabhutam Nim Anatoshmi Bhaktya Vihina Aparada Lakshay Shiptascha Karmadi Tarangamadye Kripamai Tvam Sharanam Prapana Brinde Namaste Charanaravindam Bhajami Radham Aravinda Netram Smarami Radham Madhurashmitasyam Vadami Radham Karuna Varadram Tato Mamanastikatena Kapi Tavaivasmi Najivami Tvaivina Iti Vignaya Radhe Tvam Nayamam Charanantikam. And first of all, offering millions and millions of Dandavat Pranams unto the lotus feet of my beloved Gurudev, Nitya Leela Pravishta Om Asto Tarasara Shishimad Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj. And I'm offering the same again, millions and millions of times, unto the lotus feet of our most beloved Nitya Leela Pravishta Om Asto Tarasara Shishimad Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. And I'm offering my Dandavat Pranams to that magnanimous personality who revealed this Gauradam, Namo Bhaktivinodaya Satchidanandanamane Gauda Shakti Swarupaya Rupanuga Vraite, and all our illustrious Rupanuga Guru Vargya, and all the Vaishnava and Vaishnavi devotees of the Lord. My Dandavat Pranams to all of you. So thank you all very much for coming. I want to just read the translation of this beautiful bhajan we just sang by Radha Mohandas. So, oh my dear friend, just think about the magnanimous Sri Gauranga, whose bodily luster rebukes the splendor of gold and who smashes the pride of Cupid. We spoke yesterday about the incredible, intoxicating beauty. Beauty is the angi. Beauty is the principle out of 6 qualities of Bhagavan: beauty, fame, strength, opulence, renunciation, and knowledge. These are the 6 qualities of Bhagavan. We read in chapter 13 of Jivadhamma. And the principal quality is the angi, is the beauty. The beauty is always the most stunning, the most intoxicating to actually appreciate. So Mahaprabhu wearing the complexion of Srimati Radhika. And we were describing the other day how there's a little blackish tint behind that golden complexion, which is Krishna, revealing that this is actually Krishna. Radha Krishna Pranaya Vikriti Hladini Shakti Asmad Ekatmanav. So Radha and Krishna have combined to become one in the form of Sachinandan Mahaprabhu. But his beauty is Srimati Radhika. It's the beauty of her that everyone is so intoxicated by and attracted to. And it's saying here, smashed the pride of Cupid. His beauty smashed the pride of Cupid. His curly locks, which defeat the splendor of dark rain clouds, are adorned with malati flowers surrounded by delighted honeybees. His tilak insults the beauty of the moon, and his attire enchants the whole world. How beautiful. Radha Mohan must be having a vision of that Supreme Gauranga Mahaprabhu, who we're going to hear about today. His smile, sweet like honey, allures all embodied beings. His pastimes are filled with unparalleled sentiments of pure love, bhavs. His mind is captivated by the heroine of Nidhuvan. Who's the heroine of Nidhuvan? Shri Radhika. As he utters indecipherable, is that right, Bilba? Indecipherable words in a choked voice. It is his nature to distribute mercy to those souls who are utterly destitute. So it's only really in Kali Yuga that the souls know that they're utterly destitute. We don't have any question with this. We know we're bereft of so many qualities. We read about the Paramahamsas of Satya Yuga. They were not bereft of all good qualities. They had so many good qualities there in Satya Yuga. So for them to just come forward in such a submissive, surrendered way would have been very, very difficult, practically impossible, in fact. But in Kali Yuga, when all the conditioned souls know that they're just flopping around here, where the whole atmosphere is charged with hypocrisy and deceit, these two qualities of Kali Yuga, what is it? Quarrel. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Just checking you're all awake. Quarrel and hypocrisy. Quarrel and hypocrisy. Even if you go to the North Pole, the pigeons or the penguins will be quarreling with each other. It's all pervasive across the globe. So we know that we don't have much qualification for these higher topics. So we come in that mood of total submissive surrender to the Lord. And then my Gurudev used to say, when somebody would come to them, he would want to write all over a sheet of their consciousness. And he said, if they come with a clean white sheet, he can write so much. But if the sheet is all filled with other conceptions, he doesn't have space to actually write the conceptions that he wants to offer to us, that he wants to give to us. So like this, we should be this clean sheet of emptiness, emptying the previous sanskars and anartas, etc.
Misguided and unfortunate.
Misguided and unfortunate and unlucky and short-lived. What's that? Mandu sumanda matayo, mandu bhargya uparudita. Yes, this verse in the first chapter of the first canto, describing the condition of the poor jivas in this world, who are utterly destitute, having no wealth other than Krishna and service to him. That's an enormous wealth. That's all we have. It's not actually just all, but it's everything in existence that we can have access to. As well as to those who hanker, what is that? Who are utterly destitute, as well as those who hanker for material possessions. Mahaprabhu will even benedict those souls. He will even try to bring those souls to a higher state of appreciation of the divine world. He will try in so many, by the mercy of the Mahamantra specifically, that was all pervasive across the planet. Anyone could hook into that and actually become purified by the Mahamantra. His incomparable pastimes have thrown this foolish person named Radha Mohan into confusion. We were describing yesterday how Narahari um, is Narahari Shaka is feeling he has a stone in his heart. That's how he concludes. Now, um, Radha Mohan concludes that he's a completely foolish person. And we were describing the elevated state of these personalities. And when they say like this, they really mean it. They really are feeling that they're most foolish, most unfortunate. So, because they are seeing the splendor of the transcendental realm, and therefore they're feeling totally humbled by that. And it's that humility that will give them the vision. So, this very beautiful bhajan describing the glories of Sachinandan Mahaprabhu. And apparently they sang this bhajan on the Parikrama today.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, very nice, very nice. This was one of Gurudev's favorite bhajans, my Gurudev's favorite bhajans. Very nice. So today we are going to Koladvipa and Rudradvipa, two islands. We'll go to Koladvipa uh, the day after tomorrow as well, when we go to Champahata and Samudraga, Vidyanagar, and Ritudvip. We'll cover two islands on that day also. So Koladvip is like in the middle, so to speak. And Koladvip manifested its name from one great Brahmana called Vasudev, who was meditating in Satya Yuga and worshipping Varahadev. And Varahadev manifested in front of him in such a splendid form. And the Brahmana was just astonished. And then that form changed into a form of Nrsingadev. And then that Brahman was completely astonished. And then the form came back again to that Varahadev. And that Brahman Vasudev, he worshipped very nicely that form of Krishna as Varahadev. So Kola means boar. That's how the island gets its name. So we see in our Mandir in the Devananda Gaudiya Math and in the Keshavji Gaudiya Math, it's Varaha Lakshmi Dev there on the altar. Very, very splendid and beautiful. The pastime of Varahadev is so inspiring and giving infusion of courage and enthusiasm to the devotees. Very excellent. And then Varahadev told this Brahmin, when I come to perform my pastimes in um, Kali Yuga, you will become my follower in Kali Yuga, and you will take part in those pastimes. So this Brahman, his ecstasy knew no bounds. He was totally overjoyed to appreciate that future benediction. So this is how it got its name, Koladvip. So we are there today, and we start off from our Keshavji Gaudiya Math, who we all understand was inaugurated and directed entirely by Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj. But previous to that, we would many of the disciples would live in the Devananda Gaudiya Math. So we also will visit there today too. So our Keshavji Gaudiya Math is prospering and totally full to the brim. And we'll proceed from there to the Devananda Gaudiya Math, which was manifested or inaugurated by Srila Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Goswami Maharaj after the um, court case and so on and all the conflict in the Gaudiya Math. They all separated, as we've discussed previously, and they began their own mats. So we described how in Antardweep yesterday we saw many mats going up the road, but here in Koladweep there are also many mats. There's the Devananda Gaudiya Mat, there's the Chaitanya Saraswat Mat of Srila Bhakti Rakshak Shira Maharaj also, and there's the mat of Bhakti Sirup Siddhanti Maharaj. His mat is here in Koladweep too. So if time permits, we can actually go to those different places on our parikrama today. Certainly the Devananda Gaudiya Mat, where our Param Gurudev, Srila Bhakti Bhagavan Keshav Maharaj, is sitting, resting in his samadhi there, and Bhaktivedanta Vamana Maharaj, he is resting in his samadhi there also. So we definitely go and offer our pranams to those exalted personalities. And then we continue on the journey and winding through the township of Navadvipa. And one of the first major places we come to is Prodamaya. Prodamaya is practically in the center of Navadvip. And Proda means ancient or original. It's the original Yogamaya. Previously, the Ganga has changed course, and the Vridha Shiva, which is at the Yogpith, was very closely related with this same um, worship of Thakurji at Prodamaya. They were together because Prodamaya is an aspect of Shivji simultaneously. Parvati is Durgama, but Yogamaya, Purodamaya, is Yogamaya. And my Gurudev explains how when Yasodama, she gave birth in Vrindavan, she gave birth to two children. The first was Yogamaya herself, directly, complete Yogamaya. Yogamaya is Swarup Shakti. Many Parikrama parties coming today. Um, uh, Yashoda gave birth to two children, and she is described was by the influence of Yogamaya, she didn't know whether her child was a male or a female, even, or whether she had one or two. She didn't even know that. But when Vasudev came across the river with Mathuresh Krishna and placed that Mathuresh Krishna on the bed in the birth chamber, and then that Mathuresh Krishna merges into the form of Brajendranandan Shamsundar, and he picked up Ekananksi is what her name is, who is in fact Prodamaya, the complete embodiment of Yogamaya. And then he returns to Kamsa and puts the shackles on, etc. And Kamsa, of course, comes to try and kill this child because this is the eighth child. The prophecy said the eighth child. But when he goes to dash the child on a rock in front of his mother, this is how cruel and demonic Kamsa was, then that child slips and comes into the sky, and that child at that time becomes Mahamaya. She's not the same embodiment as Yogamaya. Yogamaya will transform. Actually, in Mathura later, um, Devaki gives birth to Subhadra, and it's Subhadra who takes the role of Yogamaya in Dwarka. Subhadra doesn't come into Vrindavan until the very, very end, Krishna's sister from Vasudeva and Devaki, but she is born after Krishna. So then Krishna remains, Brajendranandan, Krishna remains in Vrindavan, performing his pastimes. And Purnamasi, she's sent, she's the uh, mother of Sandipani Muni, and she's sent with the two grandchildren, Nandimukhi and Madhumangal of Sandipani Muni, to come to Vrindavan to perform the pastimes of Yogamaya, and she makes all the arrangements. We've discussed many times the different pastimes of Purnamasi Devi. So there's two personalities. There's Vrinda Devi and Purnamasi. They're both aspects of Yogamaya working in Vrindavan. My Gurudev explains how can Krishna, who is that supreme personality of Godhead, perform these incredible Madhurya pastimes if everyone is knowing that he's the supreme personality of Godhead. So it's Yogamaya's service to cover his identity, to cover everyone's knowledge of his supreme absolute reality, his supreme absolute personality. And so Krishna can be bound easily by the rope to the ground. Even in that circumstance, though, Yogamaya is working in Krishna's favor. Krishna doesn't want to be bound by Mother Yashoda at that time when he's broken the yogurt pot. And it's described because he has two desires. He wants to play with his friends and he wants to steal some more butter. So these are very important desires that Yogamaya has to listen to. This is the Supreme Personality of Godhead having these desires. So then Yogamaya doesn't allow him to become bound. But when Krishna sees the effort that Mother Yashoda is going through to bind him, after many hours, my Gurudev describes, and all the ropes in the village of Vrindavan were used to try to bind him, but every single time they were two fingers too short. And Mother Yashoda was totally astonished by this. But even that astonishment doesn't lead her to think anything other than this is my son. She constantly understands this is my son. So this is Yogamaya. This is Prodamaya who is doing this working. And we come to this very beautiful place. The actual form of Prodamaya is a beautiful takoji beneath a tree, a very large tree. The temple actually itself is built into the tree, and it has extensive limbs and so on. It's a very mystical type of place. And right next to it is a huge Shiva lingam also, to understand that Shivji is also present in that place. So we honor Prodamaya in that place, and we appreciate the nature of her pastimes with Mahaprabhu. We described yesterday when Mahaprabhu takes his birth, then even Advaita Acharya and Sita, Mother Sita, come to the birth chamber where Mahaprabhu's taken his birth, and they understand this is the Supreme Lord when they've come, and they offer gifts and so on, beautiful gifts that's described. But Yogamaya is covering them to, in the future, in the next 10 years or 7, 8 years, while Nimai is growing up, they cover the vision of the inhabitants. And then the sweet Madhurya moods can flourish in Navadvip. So we have to appreciate this enormous speciality of Navadvip over Puridam, which we've discussed extensively, that Navadvip is Madhurya Dham. Puridam is Aishwarya Dham, without a doubt. So we have to be very, very clear on this Tattva Siddhanta, because there are personalities who will contradict this. So we have to know conclusively what is the Tattva and Siddhanta of Navadvip Dham, the Madhurya aspect. And it's all managed and arranged by Prodamaya, Yogamaya. So then we spend some time in Prodamaya, offering our Dandavat Pranam. Also in this island of Koladvip, we understand it's Aparad, Banjana, what is it? Aparad Banjan, where Aparad Banjan Pat, where all offenses can be forgiven very easily. And we hear the pastime of Gopal Chakravarti when he insulted Haridas Thakur in the assembly with Hiranya and Govardhan Majumdar, the father and uncle of Raghunath. He was sitting there in an assembly, and he proclaimed, because Haridas was saying one can get liberation completely just by chanting Hare Krishna. You don't need Gyan. And Gopal Chakravarti became incensed with hearing this. He was a most envious personality, tax collector. And he said, if you can only get liberation through Gyan, by practicing Gyan, then you will get liberation. And this is the goal of Gyan. The path of Gyan is Mukti, liberation. But Mukti is included within the path of Bhakti. If you surrender to the holy name, you will have Mukti as well as entrance, an opportunity for entrance into the transcendental land of Gokul and Goloka. So Chakravarti was most offensive in that assembly. And at that time, Govardhan Majumdar requested him not to come back into that assembly. It was a very discordant meeting and very get leprosy if it's true what you say. And a few days later, he got infected with leprosy, and his beautiful nose melted away, and his fingers began to melt away. He was in great, great, great pain. But then later on, he met Mahaprabhu. That's the story. Yes, he met Mahaprabhu, and Mahaprabhu forgave him for his offense, because he came weeping to Mahaprabhu. He'd understood the glories of the holy name and the glories of Haridas Thakur in the core of his heart. It had frightened the life out of him. You can imagine. It's like the Nalu Guvera and Mani Griva, when they began to turn into trees. It frightened the lives out of them. So this is what has to happen sometimes for the conditioned soul to get on track Sometimes the death experience can really terrify people to such a degree when they can start to pray much more significantly than they've ever prayed before. Of course, if they have no knowledge at that time, then it's going to be very difficult for them. Do you need to open the door again? You can just monitor it so we can keep it cool. So Gopal Chakravarti Thakur, he was forgiven there by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu most mercifully. And also Gopal Chapala, he was another envious Brahmin who would listen to the kirtan from the house of Srivas Thakur. And Srivas Thakur would hold these beautiful confidential kirtans regularly. And the envious people were very disturbed by the potency of that Sankirtan Ras. So one day he put all the articles for worship for Durga Ma on the doorstep to try and defame Srivas Thakur. That was his idea. But what did Srivas Thakur do? He went and called all the local Brahmanas and said, look, this is what I do. These are all the objects of my worship. And they all knew that he didn't do that. And they all knew that this had all been planted by somebody else. So they called a sweeper and they took everything away and cleansed the whole area with cow dung, etc. But that person, that Brahmin, the Gopal Chapala, as a result of that huge offense to Srivas Thakur, he incurred leprosy also. And then later on, he met Mahaprabhu when Mahaprabhu was performing his Sankirtan Ras. And Mahaprabhu told him if he wanted relief from his leprosy, he must go and beg forgiveness from Srivas Thakur. Of course, Srivas Thakur immediately gave forgiveness, and that Brahmin regained his previous limbs that had been infected by the leprosy. And then there's the beautiful forgiveness of Devananda Pandit. Devananda Pandit was like a Vaishnava from birth. He was studying Bhagavatam from birth, chanting the verses and so on. And he had his toll, his school, and he would teach Srimad Bhagavatam. But one day Srivas Thakur was walking in the street and he heard these beautiful verses from the 10th canto, Harpidal and Avaram, Karaneo, Karanikaram. He heard these beautiful verses and went inside and was listening, spellbound to these beautiful verses, and became intoxicated and became in such ecstatic bliss that he started rolling on the ground, weeping. And this was causing a distraction to the students in the class. And Devananda Pandit indicated, throw him out in the street. So these students, they put him in the street, and Srivas Thakur, he came to his senses and he was in the street and feeling very sad and unhappy, knowing that this was, he'd been put on the street like that, and went home. But when Mahaprabhu heard about this, he was furious and he shouted that Devananda Pandit doesn't know anything. He doesn't know the beginning or the middle or the end of Srimad Bhagavatam. He has no mood whatsoever. He may know all the verses and all the explanations, but he has no mood of actually what is the heart of Srimad Bhagavatam. And he said, may Devananda Pandit lose all his intelligence. But Devananda Pandit had one saving grace. He had a friend who was a great devotee, Vakrashra Pandit. And Vakrashra Pandit, he preached to Devananda Pandit about the glories of Mahaprabhu. And when Devananda Pandit heard the glories of Mahaprabhu, because previously he hadn't really accepted Mahaprabhu, when he heard the glories of Mahaprabhu from Mahaprabhu's great stalwart Parikar, Vakrashra Pandit is one of those personalities. He's Aniruddha in the Chatuvyuha. He's a very, very powerful. He had hundreds of thousands of disciples. He would dance with thousands of Gandharvas singing along with him. Anyway, a very special personality. And he changed the heart of Devananda Pandit. And Devananda Pandit went beseeching Mahaprabhu for forgiveness for his offense. Mahaprabhu again said, you go to the lotus feet of Srivas Thakur, and only he can give you forgiveness. So he did that, and then he was forgiven. And Mahaprabhu instructed him, when you speak, you speak according to the moods of the Madhurya aspect in Vrindavan. Don't speak just intellectually or scholarly. You find out what are the moods within the Bhagavatam, and you speak this. So these three personalities in particular, and there probably were others, but I don't know any of others, but this Gopal Chakravarti, Gopal Chapala, and Devananda Pandit were all easily forgiven. So this Aparad Bhanjan Pat, means that the devotees, and this is where the Devananda Gaudiya Math is situated, right there. So Srila Bhakti Keshav Maharaj, who manifested that temple, was obviously knowing that very much and wanting to give strength and encouragement to the jivas of this world, and that's why he built his temple. That's why Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Maharaj also there. So different devotees, they build their temples in a place like that. Here, of course, Mayapur is the heart of Antardweep. So here also is incredibly potent. So each place has its speciality and potency. So that's Aparad Bhanjan Path. And then we come through Prodamaya, what I've just explained, I've touched on. We can talk a long time on Prodamaya, for example, but today we have about 5 or 6 miles of walking parikrama to perform. So we have other places. Actually, when we speak on parikrama, it should be just like 15, 20 minutes on each place. That was how my Gurudev encouraged us, because the yatris, the pilgrims, they get tired, walking so fast. Usually it's blazing hot, but we've had a remarkable change in temperature. Today was freezing cold. I had my jacket on before this morning, and the day before was pouring with rain, but the day before that was blazing hot. So remarkable changes that um, Yogamaya, the Indradev, are arranging for us, for some diversity in our parikrama. So then we go past Prodamaya and we come to the place of Jagannath Das Babaji. Jagannath Das Babaji is called Vaishnav Sarvabhauma. But Vaishnav Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya? No, just Vaishnav Sarvabhauma Jagannath Das Babaji. So originally he was performing his bhajan in Suryakund. You remember where Suryakund is? Just behind Radhakund. And it's where Sri Radhika would meet Krishna every day for a delightful pastime, where Krishna would come disguised as a Brahman with Madhumangal as his servant, little servant, coming along behind wanting ladus. But when Krishna gets disguised, they're disguised by Vrindadevi. Who is who? She's an aspect of Yogamaya. So their disguise is not just like putting on a little bit of makeup and a few fancy clothes. They get the whole bodily conception of the personalities that they're trying to impersonate. So when Krishna would come, nobody could recognize him. Radharani couldn't recognize him. Lalita couldn't until he started chanting funny Sanskrit mantras that he knew that Jotila would not understand at all, but he knew the Sakis would understand. And as soon as they heard these mantras, oh, this must be Krishna. They picked up immediately and began to giggle, began to laugh. And Krishna performs that beautiful pastime where he becomes the priest for the offering to Suryadev. Every day it's described in Madhyana Lila that this pastime goes on with different flavors, etc. But this is a beautiful pastime that Krishna performs regularly in his Madhyana Lila. So Jagannath Das Babaji would reside there. He resided there for many, many years. But in his later years, when he was approaching perhaps 100 years old, then he came across here to Navadvipa Dham, knowing that Gora Dham has the most easy entrance into these transcendental places of the heart, that actually the mercy of Mahaprabhu can open the doors very easily of the heart and allow the conditioned souls to get and relish, because receiving the mercy means that the individual can now relish these truths. That's what the mercy means. We taste it. We taste the sweetness, not just hear about it, but we actually get a direct perception. Pratyakshavagamam dharmyam. This is saying in Bhagavad Gita that by direct perception of these truths, so that direct perception is the taste, the sweetness, the speciality of Mahaprabhu's pastimes. Mahaprabhu's atmosphere is completely thick in this whole of Gordam. So Jagannath Das Babaji, he came here and he performed his bhajan here for a number of years. And he was considered to be the leading Vaishnava in all the community of, at that time, like it's described in the beginning of Jaivadharma very beautifully, there were so many little pockets of settlements of Vaishnavas. There weren't mutts in those days, but there were settlements of Vaishnavas in Devananda, in Devapali, it's actually called Nrsimhapali, and Dweep and Kulia, which is where we are now. This place is called Kulia, where we are now. This Koladvipa is called Kulia today. And there were pockets of devotees there. In Shrikant, we discussed the other day, there were many devotees from there. So the devotees would be in different settlements, and then they would meet for various festival occasions and associate with each other. So in all of those groups, Jagannath Das Babaji was considered the Mahant, the presiding, most senior personality. So when Bhaktivinoda Thakur was introduced to Jagannath Das Babaji, it's described that Jagannath Das Babaji recognized straight away the potency of Bhaktivinoda Thakur. And it's even described that when Jagannath Das Babaji left this world, he infused all of the prem that he had in his heart into the heart of Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur. This is how it's described. So Jagannath Das Babaji is the direct Shiksha guru of Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, his Diksha guru, Bipin Bihari. But Bhaktivinoda Thakur gives all credit to the opening of these doors into Vrindavan from Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj. And Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj performed beautiful pastimes in that mutt across there, and the pastime of the puppies, etc. You know, when he would insist that actually the animals of the Dham, it's interesting because there's many indications about this. Gorkashore Das Babaji was the same. He would indicate that it's better to feed the cows and the dogs of the Dham than feed these pseudo Vaishnavas. So we were hearing it from both of these personalities that there must have been many people wearing the dress and robes of Vaishnavas at that time, but were not actually practicing the Vaishnava precepts because there was no proper training. Bhaktivinoda Thakur's celebrated instructions and books uh, uh, proper, hadn't properly been distributed. So the Vaishnavas, they would just put on those saffron robes to get respect from the public, and they weren't properly performing the precepts of Vaishnavism. So Jagannath Das Babaji comments on this, Gorkashore Das Babaji comments on this, and of course Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati comments on this. So we should be very honorable if we're considering ourselves to represent that Vaishnava cult, especially when we're walking around externally. We should be very, very careful to represent it fully, especially if our Guru Maharaj is known to other people and people recognize us, oh, they're disciples of so and so, like Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada said, we should be proud of our Guru Maharaj and act totally respectfully in public at all times, and not let the passions, etc., overwhelm us in different confronting circumstances. So Jagannath Das Babaji, he commented on this, and he saved all his money that he was offered, and sometimes he would just say, immediately spend all that, go and buy rasgulas and other sweets, and give them all to the dogs and the cows. And the disciples would be shocked by this, and he said, well, they are the Dhamvasis, they are the real Dhamvasis. So this was their vision. This is the vision of an Uttam Bhagavat. An Uttam Bhagavat will see like that. The Kanishta, he can't put the two together. The Madhyam doesn't quite believe it, but the Uttam, he sees it like that. He sees it fully like that. So this was the elevated state of Jagannath Babaji. And his greatest gift to humanity that we are relishing today is, of course, his confirmation of the Yogpit being the absolute place of Mahaprabhu's birth. Without that birthplace, then we wouldn't have had that flag to actually congregate around. It's like when we look at any of the religions of the world, like the Islam, it has its Mecca, and Christians, they have the Jerusalem or Bethlehem. They have their Confucius perhaps has somewhere, I don't know what that is, but they have their place, you know. And certainly, and Krishna, of course, has his Janmastan in Mathura, but also Vrindavan is the place of Krishna's birth. So without that Yogpit being established by the remarkable potency of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, how could we have had confidence to stay on this journey the way we are able to do it like that? So it was Jagannath Das Babaji who leapt out of his basket in confirmation, began dancing vigorously. 144 years old, it's described, his age. We can see people who are 80 or 90 years old getting around with a stick and hardly being able to walk. What to speak of 144 years? He had to have sticks to keep his eyelids open because his eyelids were drooping so far over his vision. And Bihari was carrying his in a basket and jumped out and confirmed that to everyone's great happiness and joy, confirmation. So then the yog pit was immediately excavated and um, began to be manifested as we see it today. Bhaktivinoda Thakur began that work. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati finished that work. So then we glorify Jagannath Das Babaji here. So we've come from Keshavji, Devananda Gaudiya Prodamaya, and we've come to Jagannath Das Babaji. Now we keep walking across a little canal, a little bridge, and we come to a very large playing field. That's where we normally congregate, the Parikrama party. It's large enough to contain perhaps 10 or 11 or 12,000 people, because traditionally our Parikrama, when we used to come in the early days out of Devananda Gaudiya, had at least 15,000 people every time. And it's very heartening for the devotees to appreciate walking through these places with such a massive crowd. There's a great, great, great energy that we experience by walking with such a huge crowd. We don't always hear so much because the guitar is in Hindi, Bengali, and 2 minutes of English at the end. And most people, all the Bengalis and Hindis, get up to leave when the English starts, so it's always very rushed and brief. So the English devotees don't always hear. So, but my Gurudev would always speak something in English. He was very, very merciful to the Western devotees coming, and he would always try and be all inclusive in the party. So then we congregate there, then we walk for it's about a kilometer. It's about a kilometer from there to Nirdoigat. And now we come into Rudradvipa. Now we come into the island of Rudradvipa. So we've been in Koladvipa, and then we transition to Rudradvipa. And in Rudradvipa, we come to Nirdoigat. And previously, when Jagannath Mishra's house, um, it was on the other side of the Ganga now, but the actual place, the Vaishnavas honor this place as being near Doigat, where Mahaprabhu jumped into the Ganga and left his single mother. Jagannath Mishra had left this world, and he left her with her daughter-in-law, Vishnu Priya, and just dived, it's described, into that icy cold Ganga in the month of Magh, February, and went to Katwa and took sannyas, which was a tremendous slash on everyone's heart in Navadvipa. It was like a thunderbolt. It was practically incomprehensible for the Vaishnavas. So it's described that he was without mercy. Nir doi. Doi means mercy. Is that how you say? Nir doi. Doi, this mercy, without mercy. He did that, left his mother, because he had a mission to do. And he wanted to set this mission for posterity for thousands of years. People will glorify Mahaprabhu's actions and activities. And he wanted to set the exemplary example of how to behave in this human form of life. And if one can physically renounce the material attachments that one has, it's extremely beneficial for his um, preparation to go higher, a higher state of consciousness, if he can actually manage to do like that. But principally, Mahaprabhu wanted to experience this Vipralamba Bhav. That was why he went to Puri. He went to Puri on the order of Mother Sachi. It was Mother Sachi, when Mahaprabhu cuts all his hair off, and that Baba, he has a little samadhi there at that very place, vowed that he would never cut someone else's hair after he did shave Mahaprabhu. And there's a beautiful story about that Baba also. But it was a very momentous time. And Chandrasekhar was there, Mukundadatta was there, and Jagadananda Pandit and Gadadhar Pandit were there. And Nityananda were there at that time. Those 5 people were there for that ceremony when Mahaprabhu took that huge step and renounced his material identity as Nimai Pandit and took on the identity of Mahaprabhu. And then he was wanting to go to Vrindavan, but he was tricked by Nityananda Prabhu into a boat, and he came back with Advaita Acharya to Shantipur. And then Mahaprabhu, he feeds them, and it's a beautiful pastime there. And Nityananda is saying, he's feeding them huge amounts of prasadam. And Mahaprabhu is hesitant to honor so much. But Nityananda is saying, you're not giving enough, you're not giving enough. And it was a beautiful exchange between Nityananda, who actually is Mahavishnu, and uh, Nityananda, sorry, is Sankarshan, and Advaita Acharya is Mahavishnu and Sadashiva. So these personalities were having very beautiful exchanges. But in that time, that festival at Shantipur, which lasted for about a week practically, with Mother Sachi, all the Vaishnavas came. Everyone came to that festival, except one. Even the dogs came, except Vishnu Priya. Vishnu Priya was the only one who was not allowed to enter that. So this is always a heartbreaking point. But we're at Nirdoi Ghat now, and this is the pastime at Nirdoi Ghat. And when Mahaprabhu was in the house of in Shantipur of Advaita Acharya, then Mother Sachi came to cook, and Mother Sachi, she requests Mahaprabhu to go to Puri. Puri wasn't so far away. What is it, about 1,200 miles, I think, something like that? More? Less? How many? 600 kilometers only, is it? Okay, okay. Authority here. 600 kilometers, approximately, I think. It's quite a few weeks walking. Must have been very wonderful with all the Vaishnavas walking in kirtan for daily like that. They must have been very healthy and fit. 500 years ago, there must have been better water. Huh?
She described that there were like two rooms in the same house, Puri and Navadvipa.
Uh-huh.
Like the two rooms in the same house.
She said like that.
Yes.
Ah, yes. So she said, Mother Sachi is saying, it's like two rooms in the same house, Puri and Navadvip. They're very close together. So they're 600 kilometers approximately. But the Mahaprabhu would not be too far away from Mother. But we know that Mahaprabhu would come daily to take the offering of Mother Sachi. And he even sent Jagadananda Pandit to confirm, tell my mother that I'm accepting all these offerings, because sometimes she comes in to take the offering off the altar and it's gone. There's nothing there. And she becomes bewildered, thinking, did I actually put anything on? Then she goes back into the kitchen and finds the pots are half there. And she becomes bewildered and confused about this. So many mystical things of this nature happened to Mother Sachi. But still, the Madhurya was too thick for her ever to think, just like Yashodama, to ever to think this is no one else except my son. Mother Sachi had that absolute firm conviction that this Nimai was her son. So Mahaprabhu goes to Puri there. But this Nirdoi Ghat is where we've come to today. And the devotees remember this pastime. I can remember one year we went with my Gurudev, and I think we must have taken a boat across, because there was a huge, absolutely clean sandbank right in the middle of the Ganga at that time. And we all went to that place, and my Gurudev was saying, this is the actual Nirdoi Ghat. But it's quite a way out from the Ganga. It's not on the other side, but it's about halfway across the Ganga. And there was a sandbank, a very clean, beautiful sand. We took prasadam there. It was very nice, perhaps 96, 97, something like that. And it was a very wonderful experience. The other devotees will remember that. But my Gurudev at that time was describing this part. My Gurudev used to describe this pastime in such a lamentable way. All the assembled devotees would be weeping and weeping when he described this, how the birds had completely stopped their singing. Everything had stopped when Mahaprabhu, Vishnu Priya, she's stubbed her toe in the morning. This inauspicious, she's lost her nose ring, and she thinks something's bad's going to happen. She's only a 16-year-old girl, maybe less, 15, 16-year-old girl. And these are very inauspicious omens, signs that have happened to her. And uh, Nimai comes home that night, and he's got that Loki from Sridham. Koladvipa Sridhar's given him a Loki. He tells his mother, make that look looky with milk. and make a nice pudding there. So she does that, and then he feeds her this, and he's never done this. He's never, and he decorates her. And Vishnu Priya is just, what's going on here? She's had all this auspiciousness, and she's got wind. Mahaprabhu has told Gadadhar that he's going to leave, and he's told Nityananda that he's going to leave. They actually go with him, but he's told them. So the word is kind of out a little bit, but nobody can really believe it. And Vishnu Priya, she's determined to stay awake, absolutely determined. But what happens is described in Chaitanya Charitamrita. Yogamaya comes like stones on her eyes. She just cannot stay awake at all. She just goes into a slumber arranged by Yogamaya. And then immediately Nimai takes off his fancy dhoti and cloth, just puts on a single cloth. And then he comes out into the courtyard. Mother Sachi is sitting there at the doorway, just with a completely white, expressionless face. Can't even think. Numb. Husband has gone. Eldest son has gone. The last desire she had was to keep Nimai at home by any means. She even found two most qualified wives, Lakshmi Priya and Vishnu Priya, thinking this might bind him. But Mahaprabhu comes out and he circumambulates his mother like 4 times. He offers pranam to his mother. He doesn't say anything. What can he say? She knows. He knows. What can be said at that time? I don't think any words are described in Chaitanya Bhagavan. He just circumambulates her, and then he goes straight to the Ganga, dives in, and comes up in Katwa. And that place where he dives in, that's Nirdoi Ghat. So that's where we've come to. This is Nirdoi Ghat. And also at this place of Rudradvip, the Rudras, Shivji's Rudra manifestations, they reside in this place, and they're all hearing the sound of the holy name. Shivji himself is there hearing the sound of Gauranga's holy name. And it's described how all the acharyas, Ramanuj Acharya, Madhvacharya, Nimbaditya, Vallabha Acharya, they all come, even though it's, what is it, 600-700 years prior, before. Ramanujacharya was 1035. So 500 years later will be 535.
35.
What do you mean?
500 years later.
Yes. From
She said
1035? Yes. So Mahaprabhu, manifested 1486 when Mahaprabhu takes his birth. So well before Mahaprabhu had advented, Mahaprabhu is an eternal entity. So these personalities, Ramanuja, he came without his disciples, without any followers. He was inspired to come to this place of Rudradvip. And there it's described that Mahaprabhu, he carefully instructed him. And in this little book, it's described exactly what Mahaprabhu took from each of the sampradayas. Mahaprabhu himself is going to place himself in the Brahma Madhva Sampradaya because it was the biggest at the time. That's the reason why. And it would support his mission with the most energy. That's why he went. He put himself in that Brahma Madhva line. But with Ramanuja, it's described that he was instructed to, Ramanuja is Vaishisht Advaitavad. The prominent philosophy was Advaitavad and established by Sankar in
Vishishta.
Vaishisht Advait.
Vishishta.
Vishisht.
Yes.
Just Vishisht, not Advait.
Advait.
Vishisht Advait, yeah. What did I say?
Vishishta.
Oh, Vishisht. Thank you. So we have some educated people here today. It's nice. It's good. So Vishisht Advait, right, Bilva? That's right. Vishisht. And Vishisht means speciality. So he was contending that no, there's a speciality in the oneness that Sankara had propagated. That speciality is the jiva's service to Krishna. This is the defect with Sankara's Advaitavad. It's all one. There's no distinction of two. So how can worship manifest when it's all one? And this is called covered Buddhism at the same time, because it was the same philosophy that Sankaracharya was preaching. So he was saying almost like a soft cell. He's the first of the Sampradaya Acharyas, and he was breaking the back of this conception that everything is one. And he was saying there's a distinction within the oneness, Vishisht Advaitavad. And then he was brought to this place in Rudradvipa. He came to this place, was inspired to come to this place alone, and he had darshan of Mahaprabhu at that time. And Mahaprabhu cautioned him not to reveal his identity to anyone, because his time for his pastimes hadn't manifested yet. He was to keep this very confidential and not to inform his disciples, but he was to preach the service to the Vaishnavas. This is what his particular preaching was already there, and Mahaprabhu confirmed this, and to um, uh, unalloyed bhakti, to preach unalloyed bhakti and service to the Vaishnavas. These two prominent features of Ramanuja's teachings were what Mahaprabhu instructed him to propagate vigorously, which he did. And Mahaprabhu, he took these two teachings and incorporated them into what he presented for his mission. So we embrace this conception of serving the Vaishnavas and what is unalloyed bhakti. It doesn't touch on Raganuga bhakti, but still it's the platform for Rag Mag to appear. So uh, Ramanuja came, and then after that, Madhvacharya, he came. But he came with his disciples. But still, it was a private darshan that Sachinandan Gaurahari gave him. And Mahaprabhu instructed him to establish the Murti form and to defeat Mayavad. These two instructions were given to Madhvacharya. This was his service to support the mission, because all of these sampradayas are coming in the time of Mahaprabhu's advent. So they all had to be purified. And then Vallabha Acharya came to this same place, and he also had darshan. But Vallabha Acharya, actually, he had darshan at Prayag, directly of Mahaprabhu later on. And Mahaprabhu, and then he goes to Puri, and then he's purified of his misconception of being a great pundit, and Mahaprabhu purifies that knot of pratishta that he held in his heart, and he begins his sampradaya, and he's representing Shivji. Vallabha Acharya is representing Shivji, and Ramanuja is representing Shri Lakshmi Dev, and Madhvacharya is represented by Lord Brahma himself. So these different personalities. What do you say, Vallabha?
Vallabhacharya did not recognize the importance of Sridhar Swami, and he wrote a commentary.
Yes, that whole pastime. He said that he had superseded Sridhar Swami. And Mahaprabhu's response was, anyone who doesn't accept Sridhar Swami is like a prostitute. I will not. And he tried to push his teaching onto all the different Vaishnavas, and none of them would accept it, except Gadadhar, because of his soft heart. He allowed himself to hear this, and Mahaprabhu rejected Gadadhar, it seemed, or ignored him. So Gadadhar became most disturbed by that. This pastime is there. So then the two precepts that Mahaprabhu takes from the Rudra Sampradaya are the concentration on Krishna, the absolute focus on Krishna in Vrindavan. This is Krishna in Vrindavan, and Rag Mag Bhakti, the propagation of Rag Mag. But this Rag Mag is not describing Parakiya. That is the distinction. It's the same with the Kumar Sampradaya. which Mahaprabhu takes from the Kamar Sampradaya, this service to or shelter of Sri Radhika. They take shelter of Radhika. And this is in the Kumar Nimbaditya, and this is Dvait Advaitvad. And um, in this Sampradaya, they are aspiring for Gopi Prem. But nevertheless, the conception of Parakya Bhav is not propagated within that Sampradaya, because Mahaprabhu was the only one who could actually describe and infuse in the pure consciousnesses this conception of Parakya Bhav. No one else could fully accept it. Even after Mahaprabhu, we've discussed, and the teachings of Rupa Goswami, still those pundits in Jaipur could not accept it. Baldev Vibhushan had to go there and actually present his Bhasya. We said this the other day. So this is a very subtle topic of Parakya. So um, Mahaprabhu himself explicitly gives this um, understanding of Parakya, and he infuses into all the sampradayas the conception of Shakti Parinamvad. Previously, it was Vastu Parinamvad, that Krishna is transforming. It's Krishna directly who's transforming into the aspect of the nature of this world. But actually, it's not Krishna. It's Krishna's Shak. Krishna does nothing. Krishna is like Nirvikar. He's doing nothing, like Nirvishesh. But Shakti is doing all of the work. This is exactly what we've been discussing in our 14th chapter. That 14th chapter is so good. It's so powerful, explaining so many different truths. So we can understand now at least the conception of this. We can appreciate it. So Mahaprabhu, he gave this Shakti Parinamvad into the Sampradaya Dara, in these four Sampradayas, and he met all these four personalities directly himself and inspired them. Now, so we always discuss all these different aspects of the um, sampradayas at this place, because this is where they all came in Rudradvipa, and they had darshan of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So that's why we're discussing it. But also today is such an important day today because it's Madhavendra Puripad's Tirabhav. It's the day we celebrate and remember the incredible aspect of Madhavendra. Madhavendra Puri is described as the Prem Ankur. He's the sprout or the seed of Bhav Bhakti in this world. And Madhavendra Puripad was so much older than Mahaprabhu. So he was in the Madhava Sampradaya himself, the Brahma Madhava Sampradaya himself, but he wasn't following those precepts of the Madhava Sampradaya, because that influence of Bhav had risen powerfully in his heart, and he was understanding these moods of the Brijbasis in a very significant way. And it's described how he took this vow of Ayur Chaka Vritti, where he would never ask anyone for anything. He would never beg, and he would just fast all day, and he would take whatever came by providence. Ananyas chintayantomam ye jana priyapasade tesham nitya yuktanam yoga shema vahamyaham. In Bhagavad Gita, it's saying that Krishna will give you what you lack and support what preserve what you have and give you what you lack. So he fully imbibed that noble mood his whole life, which is remarkable. Never asking any, and Krishna, because his faith and absolute nishta in Krishna was superlative, was the very topmost. So his whole life was like that, as an exemplary um, example for all the Vaishnavas, and he would be so much humble. We know the pastime when he, well, first of all, he's he's come to Braj, and he's near the village of Anayor, and he's fasting as normal. But in the evening time, a young cowherd boy comes. Do you have to go? You're okay?
Okay.
A young cowherd boy comes and gives Madhavendra Puripad some milk. And Madhavendra Puri asked this cowherd boy, "How do you know I was fasting?" And because why would the boy come all that way and just give him a pot of milk? And the boy says, "Oh, the ladies at the well, they saw you and they saw that you hadn't taken anything." So this young boy said, "But in my kingdom, nobody fasts." But Madhavendra Puri was amazed at the beauty of this young boy, but he didn't say, he just drank that milk. And as soon as he drank that milk, he felt completely intoxicated with prema. And then he understood something of the identity of that boy. And then he cleaned the pot very nicely and had it waiting, sitting by for when, because the boy said he would return for the pot. And then towards the end of the night, he nodded off and went to sleep. And in his sleep, he had a dream. And that same boy came again and said that he is the original controller of this Dham. He is Brajendra Nandan Sham Sundar. He is Gopal directly. And he was there in a beautiful deity form. And when the Muslims came and invaded, the Brahman pujaris, they buried him in the ground in fear that the Muslims would desecrate him as they'd been doing to different murtis. And then the Brahman ran away and never returned. And the deity was lying there for many, 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 many years, just lying under the ground. So Madhavendra Puri was directly instructed by Krishna at the exact location where he was lying and to go and bring him up to um, uh, uncover him and begin his worship again. So this is the glory of Madhavendra Puri, that he had this direct order from Krishna himself. So the next morning, Madhavendra Puri goes to the village and he explains to all the village exactly the location, and he tells them all to come with shovels, etc. And they go to that spot. In a very short time, they discover this beautiful deity of Gopal, and all are just astonished because a large deity and it's very, very, very beautiful deity. And then immediately Madhavendra Puri, he installs him on a big flat stone, and they have a big flat stone behind him, like an altar. And then he begins to cleanse that deity with many pots of water from Manasi Ganga. And then he begins to offer anukut. He begins to offer many, many preparations. And that village themselves, they offer all those preparations initially. But then all the other villages in the area, they get word of this incredible deity that's been manifested by Madhavendra Puri, and then they all want to offer their own Anukut festivals. So for days and days and days and days, practically a whole month, there's this celebration of different Anukut festivals, huge mounds of rice, huge mounds of samosas, huge practically lakes of sweet rices that they bring everything they've got. They're Brijbasis. They know this is Krishna has manifested. So they bring everything for his pleasure. Their life has come back. They've woken up again by this pastime. And then one wealthy merchant from Mathura comes and he builds a beautiful temple there. And they provide beds and everything for Gopal. Madhavendra Puri, he worships like that for about a year. And then it's described, two Bengali um, like sannyasis, brahmacharis come, and Madhavendra Puri trains them properly how to worship the deity because he was doing all the seva himself. So he trains them to do that seva themselves. And then he has another dream. And again, Gopal comes in the dream. And Gopal says, "My body is still burning from being under the ground for so long. Um, you must go to Puri and you must purchase some chandan and sandal paste, and you must bathe my body regularly for the month of Chatumasya. You must put this chandan paste on my body. Only then will my body begin to cool down." So Madhavan Puri immediately, unhesitatingly, because now he's got the two Bengali pujaris to take care of the Thakurji Seva, he immediately walks to Puri. But on the way, he stops in Ramuna. Ramuna is on the coast there. And he sees the beautiful deity of Kirchor Gopinath. And he becomes totally intoxicated with this beautiful deity and sees the beautiful arti that's being performed. And this deity of Gopinath was carved directly by an arrow of Lord Ramchandra. When Sita, we'll hear when we go to Modram Dweep, Sita wanted to know what his uh, what he looked like in Vrindavan. So Ram, he takes an arrow and he carves this form of Gopinath from an arrowhead in and that same deity of Gopinath is transferred to Ramuna. So that's how beautiful this deity is in Ramuna, carved directly by Lord Ram many thousands of years ago. And um, then he's observing the arti with great happiness. And then he sees them bring the offering in of this amazing kheer, not sweet rice, it's kheer. It's like condensed milk more, right? And there's many pots of them. And the pujari, he's offering all this sweet rice. And Madhavendra Puri, he can smell the aroma. And he's thinking, I want to know how to make that so I can please my Gopal with the same preparation. Not out of lust, but as soon as he thinks that, he thinks, oh, fie on your mind. Why are you thinking of such sinful thoughts? This has been offered, and you're thinking what it tastes like. You have committed aparad. So in great shame, he leaves the temple. He goes straight away, leaves the temple. But Gopinath, he understood who is this personality, and he tricks the pujari, and he actually takes one of those pots of kheer and he hides it behind his skirts. And then in the night, he wakes the pujari up. The pujari comes, takes all the kheer out, cleans the place and everything, and then closes the temple, eventually takes rest. And in the night, he has a dream, and Gopinath is coming in his dream, telling him that by his tricks, he hid one pot of the sweet rice under his skirts, that the pujari should wake up immediately, go into the temple, and take that pot of sweet rice for his dear devotee, Madhavendra Puri, who is just staying now in the marketplace in Ramuna. He's just staying on one stall, just chanting quietly in the marketplace. So the pujari takes a bath, it's described by Krishna's Kaviraj, and goes into the altar. And he, to his amazement, he finds there is the pot of sweet rice underneath the skirt. And immediately he takes it carefully to the marketplace where he's been told to go. And he calls out, where is Madhavendra Puri? Where is Madhavendra Puri? You are so fortunate soul. Gopinath has stolen a pot of sweet rice for you. This is why that Gopinath has now become called Kirchor Gopinath. Kirchor. Chor is a thief. The thief of that Kir. He's now called Kirchor Gopinath. And he's calling out loudly in the marketplace, oh, where is that celebrated Madhavendra Puri, who Gopinath has stolen this Kir for? And finally, Madhavendra Puri very humbly makes his appearance. And the pujari explains the dream, and Madhavendra Puri is overwhelmed. And he takes this kheer and he relishes it completely, understanding all the ingredients as he's relishing it. When he's finished that, he breaks the clay pot into pieces and ties it in his cloth so that he can suck on one of those uh, pieces of clay later on. But then he starts to think, oh, this pujari is going to tell everybody that Gopinath has stolen a sweet rice for Madhavendra Puri. That means everyone is going to come and glorify me tomorrow morning. Now I should leave. So even before the sun rose, he left that place straight away because he had a seva to do in Puri. But it's described in the commentaries by Srila Bhakti Siddhanta and Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur that when Krishna wants to glorify his devotee, there's nothing that the devotee can do to avoid the glorification. So when he arrived in Puri, they had all heard of this tremendous, thievery by Gopinath. And they began to glorify Madhavendra Puri as soon as he arrived. They knew who he was. And Madhavendra Puri was very shy. But then he decided, yes, with this uh, glorification of me, I can use this to my own advantage and procure the sandal paste and the chandan. I can procure this sandal and chandan. So he requests them all to give him these kilos of sandal and chandan. And he gets all the papers made up because all the people are glorifying him. He's like a big celebrity. So then he can get his work done easily. They even apply two brahmanas to carry for him. Then he starts his progress back to Remuna because that's on the road. He's going back to Vrindavan to put this on the body of Gopal, and then he comes into the temple again. If you've ever been to Ramuna, it's an incredible temple. It's like in three sections. You come in the door and it looks like it's just one temple. Then you go through the next sort of big arch and there's another section. And you go through the next arch and there's another section. And then you see Gopinath at the end. But it's a very individual temple. It's very, very beautiful. And in the courtyard is the samadhi of Madhavendra Puri there later on. So anyway, Madhavendra Puri comes in and he's dancing vigorously with all the devotees. The devotees, they immediately supply him with so many bowls of kheer after the pastime that happened before, they know. And they give him all, and he distributes it to all the different devotees. But he tastes it again, he relishes it again and again. And he's talking with Pujari and knows exactly how to make it for his Gopal. And um, then he vigorously participates in the arti. Then he rests in the temple room itself that night. And then he has another dream where Gopinath comes in his dream. This is the third time now he's having a dream. I think this one time was to begin with uncovering Gopal. The second time was to go and get the sandal. And this is the third dream, a direct visitation by the Supreme Lord, three times. So then Gopinath comes directly into his dream and says, myself and Gopal are the same. We are non-different. Krishna's heart is melting. He knows his dear devotee and dedicated follower has to make a long journey with dacoits and all kinds of people on the road. Even though he's got the papers, it still makes it hard work with the Muslim toll gates, etc. And he says, you just please spend the next 4 months grinding this chandan and place it all on my body, on Gopinath's body. And then Gopal will be satisfied totally and cool down. So Madhavendra Puri, very carefully, he engages those two Brahmins who are carrying the chandan to begin to grind it and to systematically smear the body, the beautiful, gorgeous body of Gopinath daily during that Chaturmasya season. And all the residents there in Ramuna are so happy that this revelation has come to Madhavendra Puri and that he's putting, because this chandan and to make this chandan is very expensive. Actually, it has to have proper papers and so on to get it. It's like you can't just access it easily. That was why only in Puri he could get it, and at great expense, and then he had to carry it, etc. So it's a very cherished commodity. So all of this Chandan was placed on the body of Gopinath, and then Madhavendra Puri is described felt complete bliss and happiness. He spent the whole time there with the Gopinath deity. And then he returns back to Puri, back to Vrindavan, and seeing the satisfaction of Gopal. But then it's described that ultimately he has one ashram actually in Gaya, which is where his disciple Ishvara Puri assisted him to leave this world. Ishvara Puri was staying in that ashram in Gaya with Madhavendra Puri when Madhavendra Puri leaves the world. Madhavendra Puri, Ishvara Puri, of course, is the spiritual master of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So Ishvara Puri has received that nourishment in the heart directly from Madhavendra Puri. Madhavendra Puri previously was traveling around in India. He met Nityananda Prabhu. He had so much time with Nityananda. He also initiated Advaita Acharya. He initiated Pundarik Vidyanidhi. There are so many elevated disciples, sadhaks that he gave Diksha to directly. And then um, uh, Madhavendra Puri, he returns to Ramuna later on, and in Ramuna is actually where he leaves his body. And that's his samadhi is placed there next to Rasikananda. Rasikananda, we spoke about the other day, that great stalwart disciple of Shyamananda Prabhu, who practically transformed the Vaishnava cult in Orissa in particular. So that great devotee is there next to Rasikananda would worship Madhavendra Puri. All of our line worships Madhavendra Puri. Whenever we're thinking of our line, it in a sense begins from Madhavendra Puri, and then Ishvara Puri, and then into the full blossomed sapling of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And two of Madhavendra Puri's disciples, Ishwara Puri, who embraced, no, sorry, the disciples of Ishwara Puri, Govinda and Kashishvara. These two disciples were sent when Ishwara Puri was leaving this world. He was um, Ishwara Puri himself was caring very much for Madhavendra Puri. When Madhavendra Puri left this world, he was incapacitated, and Ishwara Puri would care for his body completely, clean him, and take care of all his bodily needs. And Madhavendra Puri infused all of this um, awareness of these transcendental bhavs into his heart, because Madhavendra Puri is the first sprout of Bhav Bhakti. Bhav Bhakti practically hadn't been manifested before the nature of um, Madhavendra Puri. And the question was asked, there was a little video this morning, and the question is asked to my Gurudev, um, you're saying that this is the first time that these barbs were actually manifest, but what about Jaidev Goswami? And my Gurudev says Jaidev Goswami had some Aishwarya mood. He couldn't accept that Radharani's lotus feet would decorate the head of Krishna. He couldn't accept that. He couldn't write that. So there was some Aishwarya Bhav with Jaidev Goswami. But with Madhavendra Puri, that Aishwarya Bhav was vacant. It was not there. So Madhavendra Puri was full blown in Braja Prem. So that current was passed to Ishwara Puri when Madhavendra Puri leaves this world. And then that same mood was passed into the heart of Mahaprabhu. So it's a consistent current that is flowing of this Rag Marg, this Bhav Bhakti. And then, as I said, Ishwara Puri, when he was leaving this world, he sent his two disciples, Govinda and Kashishvar, to serve Mahaprabhu. And Mahaprabhu was very reluctant to actually do this because they were his godbrothers. How could he accept service from his godbrothers? So he asked Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya in Puri, what shall I do? Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya said, there is the main consideration is the order of Guru. And Guru has ordered these two shishyas to come and serve you. So that should be the priority instruction. What does Gurudev want? So Gurudev wanted these two to come and serve. And we know that Govinda was such a selfless personality. He just gave his whole life to serving Mahaprabhu in every way, in his whole pastime in Puri. And Kashishvar was uh, a very large person. Kashishvara, he had come from Navadvipa originally, and he would sport with Mahaprabhu when Nimai, when he was a child in the Ganga. They had many pastimes together. So he was familiar with, and Mahaprabhu was familiar with him also. And when Mahaprabhu would walk through the thick crowds to go to the mandir in Puri, Kashishvara being a very large man, he would keep all the crowds from um, flooding Mahaprabhu as he was walking to the temple. He would, like his bodyguard, protect him all the way through there. So these two disciples came directly from Ishwara Puri Pad and served Mahaprabhu very nicely in Puri. So these are some of the descriptions of Madhavendra Puri.
One thing I want to add, when Madhavendra Puri was about to pass away and he was crying, thinking that
Yes, thank you, Bill.
Ramchandra Puri,
Ayinanda Tanuja Kinkaram. Patitambam Vishwamba. No, what am I saying? What's the verse? Aidina Dayadrinatahe Mathuranath Kalava Yokate. Hridayam Tvad Aloka Kataram Daita Brahmite Kim Karom Yaham. This is the verse. This is what you're going to say? This?
and Ramchandra Puri
Yeah,
came
yeah,
and he was chastising his own spiritual master, saying, why are you
yes,
crying?
yes,
You should be
yes,
meditating on the
yes.
Brahman.
When Madhavendra Puripad was leaving this world, he was remembering the pastime when Sri Radhika was left by Krishna. When Krishna goes to pacify Radhika in the Raslila, and then he decorates her, then he says, do you want to keep walking or do you want to come to a flower bed? And Radhika's saying, I'm too tired. and Krishna is saying, "You sit on my shoulder." And then Radhika goes to sit on his shoulder, and then Krishna disappears. And then Radhika, she chants this beautiful verse, Hey Nata Ramana Preshta, Kwasi Kwasi Mahabhuja, Dasyaste Grihayame, Saki Darshayan Sadinim. She chants this beautiful verse. And it's this verse that Madhavendra Puri is remembering when he's leaving this world. And he chants a very similar verse. Ai dina deyadinata he maturanat kalapyokote. Hridayam tvad aloka kataram. Dayita kim karomya ham. Dayita kim karomya ham. This verse, it's this kinkari. He's asking kinkari, what can I do? What is it, Ramite Dayitam? You see, just written there. Can you tell me the verse, Gokul? Just under the calendar there. Say it loudly. Aidina Dayan
दीनदयाद्रनाथ हे मथुरनाथ कदावलोक्यसे
Kadavalokyate
हृद्यं त्वद् आलोकं कातारं
Hridayam Tvad Aloka Kataram
कतरं दयित भ्रमयति किं करोमि अहं
Dayita
Brahmayati.
Brahmati
भ्रमयति किं
Kim
करोमि
Karomya
अहं
Aham. Yes. Thank you, Bilva. If I'd forgotten to say that verse in glorification of Madhavendra Puri, the whole Leela would have been empty, actually. This verse is so important.
So Ramchandra Puri came and he was
Yes, when Ramchandra Puri came, who is he's like a Nirvishesh Brahmagyani, and was chastising Madhavendra Puri. Why you should be focusing your consciousness on the Brahman. Why are you calling out like this in the mood of towards Krishna? You should be focusing on the Brahman. And Madhavendra Puri said, "Get this man out of my sight. I never want to see him again. Don't let me leave my body in front of this sinful wretch," and became very disturbed. So Ramchandra Puri, we know his fall down after that. He just became very envious of all the devotees. He comes to Puri and he's criticizing all their eating habits, and he's making all the devotees reduce their eating, taking out their sweets. He finds some ants on the floor, on the kutia, where Mahaprabhu stays, and says, "Look, there must have been sweets in here yesterday. Sannyasi is not supposed to eat sweet." Ramchandra Puri was despicable person. He would come and he would feed the devotees up to the neck, and then he would criticize them for eating so much, just really and torturing all the devotees like this. And then finally, he left Puri, and all the devotees were so relieved. But Mahaprabhu himself demonstrates to not make any fuss, but he cut his eating practically in half while Ramchandra was there, and he reduces everything like that. So this pastime is there. Again about Madhavendra Puri. So particularly we'll put these two verses up. This Ayadina Dayadunatahe, Maturanath Kalavayokite. I hope Rasamandri is listening. She can put them up on the WhatsApp thread so the devotees can relish them. And this other verse, which was the meditation of Madhavendra Puri, the Hey Nata Ramana Prishta, Kwasi Kwasi Mahat Pujay, Dasyaste Kripayame, Saki Darshayam Sanidim. Hey Nata Ramana Prishta, Kwasi, Kwasi, where have you gone? Where have you gone? Where have you gone? Krishna's just disappeared. So very pathetic pastime, very heartbreaking pastime. So this is Madhavendra Puri part. So today we've come from the Keshavji Gaudiya Mat to Devananda Gaudiya Mat to Prodha Maya to Jagannath Das Babaji to Rudradvip. We've talked about Nirdoi Ghat, and we've discussed um, the Sampradayas, and we've discussed especially Madhavendra Puri. And finally, just as a final conclusion, the glories of this personality, Pujapad Bhaktivedanta Avadut Maharaj, left this world today from Sri Mayapur, remarkably, and he was quite incredible. He had half his face eaten away by cancer. His ear had become infected right across his face, and he was taking zero medication, absolutely nothing. And I was speaking to him, and his mind was as sharp as crystal, absolutely clear. This was just a couple of days ago. So I don't know how he managed that, but I asked him I said, "Are you feeling any pain?" Because it was an open, they weren't covering it because it had to be open. And he said, even before I finished my sentence, like he wasn't even going to go to that place. He said, "No, no pain." Like just really, really quickly to demonstrate he wasn't even entertaining pain in his body. He'd come to another place of consciousness and was not going to that, because I've seen other people leave cancer with cancer and they're taking all kinds of drugs and medication because what I've understood is an incredibly painful disease that time. But he was taking nothing. And then it reminds me actually of um, Pujapad uh, uh, Bhakti Vigyan Bharati Maharaj, when he thought that the Sevaks were trying to uh, serve him too much and it was becoming a distraction with his sick body, he just left one day very quickly. Bhakti Vigyan Bharati Maharaj. He was in the hospital, just came back, and he saw all the Sevaks working so hard to look after his body, and he couldn't tolerate that attention. So he just quickly left his body. So our dear beloved Avadut Maharaj, Bhaktivedanta Avadut Maharaj, left in a similar circumstance today. His whole life was given to Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada and my Gurudev, Bhaktivedanta Narayan Maharaj, just preaching his whole life. His back actually had become bent from carrying so many books over the years. Just a really dedicated personality. And he left very easily with no big drama. He just left it. He'd sent his sevaks out. He was with 3 sevaks. Actually, this person, he was in North Carolina, and he rang someone up and asked them, "Where is the best place to leave my body?" And they said straight away, Mayapur. So he booked himself alone a ticket to Mayapur and hadn't told any of his sevaks what he was doing. And then he just left on his own. He had half a face and skinny as a rake, could hardly even walk, but left alone to the airport. There's even a photograph on his Facebook page of him sitting in the airport, all alone beside a conveyor belt. He had no one to help him. He just didn't want to incur anyone's um, support, etc. And he just was ready to do it alone. But then his sevaks found out, they caught up with him finally. Then they came with him to Mayapur. And then even today, this morning, he sent his sevaks to join the Parikrama party. And he was left just with one sevak who reported that he'd just left the body, left his world. He just left in front of them like that. So it was very glorious leaving, very courageous. This person was really a special, very special devotee, exceptional devotee. Today, this morning.
Maybe he chose that day.
Maybe he did. And it's also Ekadashi today. We are following Ekadashi today. It's Mahadwadasi, but we follow Ekadashi today. Yesterday was the calendar Ekadashi, but it was not suitable for fasting. So we follow Ekadashi today. So he left on the Mahadwadasi day, and he left on Madhavendra Puri's day, and he left on the second day of the Navadvipa Parikrama in Sridham Mayapur. And it reminds me of our dear beloved Bhaktivedanta Srila Trivikram Maharaj, who always used to say, "I want to die alone and unknown." What does that mean? That means your connection with transcendence is clear. It's not cluttered with various other considerations of emotions, etc. You have to be very brave to think like that. Usually we want all our friends and relatives to give us courage and so on for the next step, but he did it alone. Avadut Maharaj is like that. So Pujapad Bhaktivedanta Avadut Maharaj ki jai. Srila Madhavendra Puri Pad ki. His ceremony is taking place now, his cremation. I'm not sure where they decided. They were actually going to do it. I would have attended in this night, but I had to do this program. But many, many devotees will be celebrating his cremation, then putting the ashes in Mother Ganga. You couldn't get a more fortuitous conclusion to a world of, I think he was about 78, 79 years old. And his whole life, there's a picture of him with Prabhupada on the Facebook as a very, very young, practically a boy, receiving his Diksha mantras from Prabhupada. So from the age of 20 till the age of 78, he hadn't missed a step in his devotional practices.
What was his brahmachari name?
Upananda. He principally preached in Australia, initially for a long time in Australia. He was responsible for putting Australia on the map. He went to Australia before even Prabhupada came to Australia and helped arrange for the situation for Prabhupada to be there. He went to China also. He went all over the world, South America. He went everywhere. And all the devotees will always respond on his gentle nature and his absolute humble mood, completely humble. He was a real avadut. He never cared for what his dress looked like or anything like that. He just wasn't aware of it. And I think at the very end of his life, he wasn't really aware of the pain in his body because of that mentality. He just decided not to be in the body and experience the pain. I can't imagine how that must have been. Anyway, Krishna was very kind to him, took him away at a very auspicious time. Vaishnavas ki jai, Sachinandana Gaura Hari ki jai, Rudradvipa ki jai, Koladvipa ki jai, Anantakoda Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai, Gaur Premanandi.
Regarding Nirdoi Ghat.
Huh?
Regarding Nirdoi Ghat.
Yeah.
Is Mahaprabhu's living from there, is that parallel or equivalent to the living Vrindavan in Krishna?
I never thought of that. Very interesting. With the Krura, you mean? Krishna leaves with a Krura for 100 years. So similarly, Mahaprabhu leaves in Nirdoi Ghat for probably a relative amount of time of 24 years. Mahaprabhu does return one time when he's trying to go to Vrindavan, but I'll think about that. Let me get back to you. Very nice question. Very nice. Don't let me forget that question. It's a good question.
Actually, the gopis are saying that your name should be Krura and not a Krura.
Yes, Krura, cruel, cruel. But you heard his question? Is that Nirdoi Ghat a similar comparison to when Krishna leaves? If the devotees on the threads didn't hear, he asked the question, is that Nirdoi Ghat similar to when Krishna leaves Vrindavan? So I've never considered that point, actually. It's very nice. That's the wonderful thing about hearing questions, especially if you've never heard them before. Then you've got some homework to do, some research to check it out. So let me get back on it. It's very nice. I'll ask my pundit friends to see what. I'll tell you tomorrow for sure. Nitai Gauranga Jaya, Nitai Gauranga, Nitai Gauranga. Nitai Gauranga Jaya, Nitai Gauranga. Nitai Gauranga Jaya Gaura Hari. Oh, Gaura, Gaura, Gaura Hari. Gaura, Gaura, Gaura Hari. Gaura, Gaura, Gaura Hari. Oh, Jaya Sachinandana, Jaya Sachinandana. Jai Sachinandana Gaura Hari. Oh, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Oh, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Oh, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare. Oh, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hari-bol, 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 Gaura Hari-bol. Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Gaura Hari Bol. Jaya Nitai, Jaya Gaur, Jaya Nitai, Jaya Gaur. Oh Jaya Radha, Madana Mohan Radha, Madana Mohan Radhe. Jaya Radhe, Jaya Radhe, Jaya Radhe, Jaya Shri Radhe. Oh Radhe, 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 Radhe. Go Premanande, Hari Hari Bol, Nityananda Prabhu Ki Jai, Satchinandana Gaura Hari Ki Jai, Koladvipa Ki Jai, Rudradvipa Ki Jai, Madhavendra Puripad Ki Jai, Vaishnavas Ki Jai, Anantakota Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai, Gaura Premanande, Hari Hari Bol, Rupanuga Guru Varigya Ki Jai, Bhakti Vinod Thakur Ki Jai, Gaur Premanande, Hari Hari Bol, Vanchakalpa Turubhyascha, Kripa Sindhu Patitanam Pavnivyo Vaishnave Namo Namaha.